welcome everybody. Today we have somebody very, very eminent, Mrs. Shweta Shalini ji. She's a spokesperson with BJP. She was an ex-advisor of ex-CM Devendra Fadnavis ji. Shweta ji, being in politics, tell us something about yourself. How did you become a passionate politician from a young girl that you would have been? Did it come your way? Did you choose it? How did it all happen?
Today, I'm a politician by choice, but I came into this field definitely by chance. I'm actually an entrepreneur in my heart. And, once an entrepreneur is always an entrepreneur. My father was in the army, in the armed forces. And one thing he taught me very early in life is that it is important that we have the love of the nation deeply rooted within us. Now, this love needs to come out in some format into service of the nation. And this service of the nation can be done by anybody who chooses to do his own job extremely well. Like a soldier chooses to be at the border, probably a chowkidar chooses to be at the border of your society, but he is equally important. But we need to be passionately following our dreams and giving our best. And we need to keep the larger purpose alive. I think with these things in mind, things that I had top on priority in my life was service of the nation. I did my engineering, I did my MBA, I worked for a multinational company, I did a startup. The larger purpose of my life was still somewhere missing. And that's how I chanced upon Narendra Modi ji in 2007 and 8. And I realized what a visionary he was. And that changed the course of my life. I realized that if one man can dedicate his entire life to the nation and can believe that one man can change the world, then it's me. There need to be more people who believe that if there is somebody who can change the nation, then it's me. And when lots of me's stand together, that's when this nation is going to change. I also met Devendra Fadnavis ji about 8-9 years ago. And I realized that he was a guru, he was a mentor. He was a person who believed that if you want to change, you need to take charge. One of the things that he always said was, good people choose to stay aside, and that's where politics with its bad people sustains. So when good people take charge and say that I am going to make the difference, that's when things will start changing. But for that, good, competent people who have the right intentions of service need to come into the segment. I chanced upon this segment and later realized that this was my true calling because I wanted to serve the nation. And this was one of the places where by perhaps changing one policy, I could affect thousands and thousands of people. If you actually see with the various policies that Narendra Modi ji is changing today, a simple thing like Ujjwala Yojana has changed all the chulhas, the women in the rural areas to gas cylinders. Now, that one policy, that one intention is going to make that difference. And I thought, why not me? And that's how I'm here.
So is it easy or difficult for a woman to survive in a male-dominated field like politics?
Which field is not male-dominated, by the way? It's a man's world, right? And we are 50% of the population. But unfortunately, as I said, it is important to take charge, take lead. Women have decided for years together, to take a second seat. And hence, somehow, we allowed it to become the man's world. I don't believe in the concept of women empowerment because I feel that every woman is born empowered. And especially Indian women were always empowered. For example, I always say this, that look back and think about your grandmom and look back and think about your mother. She was the one who decided which school you went to, which dress you're going to wear, what is it that you are going to eat and the house is going to eat, how is the house going to look, which house we are going to buy. So she was always the user, the consumer in the marketing language today. She made the decisions and the Indian men always allowed them to make the decisions. Unfortunately, because she never stepped out to earn and have financial independence for a little while, that's when tables turned. Wherever there is a differential power arrangement between the rich and the poor, between the have and the have nots, between the more powerful and the less powerful, there is going to be a disbalance. And it is this disbalance that happened because women not choosing to one study, to be financially independent, and to probably be decisive as we always have been in various fields in our lives. And that's how this power disbalance happened. But I think women are coming back, and it's important for us to understand that we still have miles to go, but we are coming back. As far as I am concerned, when I was very young, my father, he was an army man, so he taught me, and I remember he telling me, "Tum Rajni ki chand banogi या दिन की मार्तंड प्रखर, एक बात है मुझे पूछनी, फूल बनोगी या पत्थर, नकली फूल क्रीम कंघी से नकली रूप सजाओगी या असली तेज लहू का आनंद पर चमकाओगी." It means as a woman you have to decide कि तुम रात की रजनी चांद बनने वाली हो या दिन की तड़कता भड़कता सूरज. If you decide on your own, you can take that decision. You are powerful enough. So being born to a father like that, I think I was brought up in a way where I was an independent thinker, where I realized that I had the power within me to change the ecosystem or to bring in the change. My father also, with his thought process, it brought us a thought process in our minds that if we want, we could do whatever. There is no limit to achievements. And he also made us think that it is the process. So a lion gets up in the morning and decides to go out for a hunt, and he loves hunting. He does not hunt for the prey. He does not hunt for the prize. He just enjoys hunting. So, we were taught very, very early in life that it is the process and not the end goal, not the prize. And enjoy the process. When I entered politics, I realized that it is a man's world. It is going to be a little difficult. We are going to be numbered few. If you actually look at the parliament today, we are just about 11% and represent 50% of the population. If you look at the change that is happening, the number of tickets that are given to women, that's in every political party, it's just about 8 to 9%. There are various parties which win only because of votes of women. So yes, there needs to be a change. But on the flip side, how many women are entering politics? How many women who have entered politics are ready to sustain through their own competency? How many women who have entered politics are ready for anything and everything and are skilled enough to compete in this world? So these are also the flip sides. So as women, I feel we need to understand that there is an opportunity. We need to have the patience to change. And last but not the least, we should enjoy the process of change. I'm enjoying, And as I tell the men around me that, the best thing is we have a choice to wear the pants, whether in the house or outside. But unfortunately, men can't wear the saris. And we as women have our heels high, our head high, and our standards extremely and equally high. If we choose to believe that, we will choose to not only sustain, but do well in any world.
Was that now that you are in the politics, what do you see should change to encourage more women into this? Or folks like you, like 11% of team members that you are there, what one thing, two things, three things you can name saying that could change or get you all to thrive in the system?
Constitution, Babasaheb Ambedkar says that represent the unrepresented through reservations, right? So yes, a lot of people you talk to will talk about 30% reservation in parliament as well for women. I am not so much of an advocate of reservation because I have always fought in the open and with thorough competency, and I believe in competency. What I firmly believe, and if you've said three things. So to me, point number one is we need to have the pool larger. See, when the funnel is larger, then only, so one is we need more and more women to come into politics. That's point number one. Point number two is from this pool, it is important, for example, through policy, we actually tweak the policy at the panchayat level and a few corporation level as well, where 50% of seats to women and only women candidates could apply. If you go to up north in UP, in Bihar, you will see a word like Panchayat Pati, Pradhan Pati. Maharashtra, you will hear Sarpanch Pati. Now, the Sarpanch is a woman, but she's not active. She's at home, and she is usually represented by her husband. Things like this can be and should be avoided if we can skill these women who have been elected and or selected based on whatever criteria, so there needs to be a skill program within the ecosystem to train women, to pick out the women who are competent enough, and to make them understand how they can better governance or learn governance. It's a skill set. So there is a need to provide this skill set to these women. Last but not the least, I think I belong to a political party which is called Bharatiya Janata Party. Within the political party, within the positions of the political party, we have 30% women. And if you actually look at the cabinet as well, then good portfolios were given in the first time. If you actually look at it, Sushma ji was there, Smriti ji was there. Now, Nirmala ji held positions like the finance ministry and defense ministry, which never had women as full-time ministers. So this government, and especially Narendra Modi ji, is very, very supportive to competent women. I always say this: talent has no gender. It does not have a gender, and hence it is more important for a person to be talented and not to be a man or a woman. So the moment we start looking at somebody as a resource, somebody as talent, we will cease to look at him through the lenses of gender. And that precisely is what gender neutrality is. But as I said, we need to go a long, long way. I think it is very critical to make the right policies, which is going to be my zeroth and the most important thing. If you actually look right from data biases to tech biases, to job biases, to primarily, so when I say data biases, if you actually look at it, there has been immense work across the globe where you realize that the data collected across segments and across sectors are not gender agnostic. So what comes out, for example, I'll give you a simple example. You are from human resource department. So when there is a large IT company, the centralized AC is usually 5 degrees colder for women because it is designed centrally for the metabolic rate of a 40-year-old 70 kg man. So usually you will see the women in IT offices wearing shawls or sweaters and the men not wearing that. It's simple policy-based, data-based change that we need to bring, but we need to bring that. We need to bring it in our thinking. Another example I can give you is, and a lot of work across the globe is happening in this regard. Another example is that seat belts are not being made for women. They are made for men. So what usually happens is the seat that the same cars are being used as women drivers and men drivers. But the women drivers have to actually move a little in front because of their short legs. The distance between their hips and their knees is shorter, and hence the seat per se becomes a little larger. So for them to reach out to the brake and the accelerator, they need to move a little ahead. And that's why the safety belt that is made for them is usually has to be a little different. Otherwise, what exactly happens is 50% chances of frontal accident, and the woman dies 50% of the times because the safety belt was not meant to be for her, but was designed for a man. So we need to be policy agnostic, we need to be gender agnostic, we need to be data agnostic, and we need to be tech agnostic. And that's when I think true equality will come in. But somebody needs to start looking at it from the policy level and then go towards the grassroots.
Now, I would want to ask you that being in the central government, are there any 3 critical policies that you all are reviewing which could make the country gender agnostic or diverse and get the equality in any 3 things that you can think of? It could be policy, it could be some initiative.
We have done a lot and we are doing a lot. So one of the things that I have been very excited about is the Mission Poshan 2.0, which was declared in this budget. It is basically a mother-child program. If you actually look, COVID hit not a lot of children, but the few who got affected were the malnutrition children. India, because of the subsidy that it gives at the level of grains, food grains, to almost everybody, food grains reaches each and every single person in the country. I see no reason why there needs to be SAM, severely acute malnutrition cases, and MAM cases across India. But yet there are regions, and you'll be surprised to find that there are urban slums which are today affected by SAM and MAM, right? And these are the people that we want to affect. So Mission Poshan 2.0 was something that I feel was extremely, extremely important towards women and child. So that's one example which I feel is something that has been done for women. Second, if you look at it, Ujjwala Yojana, as I was talking about, a lot of women developed TB, tuberculosis, or lung diseases in the rural areas, which we did not figure out was because of the chulhas that they were using. So one of the tangential consequences of the Ujjwala Yojana has reduction of TB cases and lung diseases across rural India. In fact, a recent study also shows that kerosene, which was actually used to burn women, the number of women who are dying because of burning, because of dowry cases, because of some, internal fights between husband and wife or the family, or various other things. Now, because there has been an Ujjwala Yojana, the consumption of kerosene has reduced, and that is where, the number of cases of burning has come down. What I'm primarily saying, for example, when we are talking about Jal Sandhar and when we are talking about every tap in every home, who would go out and collect water? It was the women. It was the women who had to go for 10 kilometers each to collect drinking water. So when we are talking about Har Ghar Mein Jal or Nal, that is precisely what we are talking about for women. When we are talking about Swachh Bharat and we are talking about toilets, it is the women who were forced to go out, and the number of rape cases had increased in the rural areas because the women would go out at odd hours. So who has benefited from this? Who has benefited from Jan Dhan Yojana? Maximum number of women have opened zero bank accounts called Jan Dhan Yojana, and direct benefits have come to women. Who has benefited from Bhagyashree Yojana? The women have benefited because it is the women and the girl child which was given this money. And what used to happen was, if I'm a labor, I stand in the queue for getting my payment. It was easier for the contractor to tell the woman or exploit the woman to give that money. Now that money does not come to the contractor, it goes as direct benefit into the bank account, whether it is Manrega or be it the Bhagyashree Yojana or be it any other Yojana. So I personally feel the intention of this government has been to strengthen women at all levels. If you look at livelihood, the self-help group programs, the zero loans program, the livelihood program in women entrepreneurship, who has made the maximum number of masks in COVID times? These women self-help groups, which were rural based, which were urban slum based, these women created cotton mask and sold. So maximum benefit came to these women. Who has built SMEs? The Agarbatti Udyog, the Kapoor Udyog, the Udyog that started with home buyers, so local to vocal, whether it's handicraft or homemade food items, which was through e-commerce circulated across areas and sent at the doorstep for these urban population who were consumers. Who benefited? The money actually went to the women who were preparing this. So I personally feel, and I travel a lot, I go to these villages, I'm extremely passionate about the rural changes that are happening in India. And I firmly believe the future of India is going to be written by the women of India. The fact is, whether you give us the opportunity or you don't, we are going to snatch away the opportunity for you, because we are getting ready, we are pulling up our socks, and we are working harder than anybody else, because we want to prove that the opportunity, when it comes to us, we will make hay while the sun is shining.
One last question for you is, what is one message that you would want to give it to all our viewers? Maybe they are women, maybe they are men working in the space. Okay, what they can hear from Shweta Shalini, that this is something that you should do. You should take charge. Okay, shouldn't just wait for government to do things, but you can do differently.
3 things that I want to say. One is, see, I love the lion, and I think Narendra Modi comes from Gujarat, from the place of the Gir. And for a lot of us, he's the lion of India today. But, one thing that I love about the lion is that he's the king of the jungle. He's majestic. Just think about it. Is he the tallest? Is he the strongest? Is he the fastest? No, he isn't. The cheetah is much more faster than the lion. Can he climb trees? No, the monkeys can climb trees, not the lion. Is he the strongest? No, the elephant is much more stronger than the lion. And there are hundreds of elephants in a jungle, but there's one lion because he's the king. You know why he's the king? He's the king because he thinks up here that he is the king. And that is the reason why he's not the fastest, he's not the strongest, he's not the giraffe, he's not the tallest, but yet he's the king. So I think right up here, train yourself that if I have to win, if there is one person who's going to win, it is going to be me. Second, specifically to the women, I feel 2 messages, very clear cut. One, to all women out there, I think PMS stands for plan, model, and scale. And that is what it has to mean to every woman. So plan your day, plan your life, plan your year ahead, model it, whatever you want to do. Just create a small initiative around it and see if it's going to work. So model it and then scale it, work around it so that it can be scaled. There is no other thing like PMS. So the more you start believing out of it, you will start believing that you are meant for more. The larger purpose needs to be there. And last but not the least, I think there needs to be a sisterhood shout out. It is important that we need to break this large myth that says that 2 women can't work together or women can't support each other. Women for women is the truth. If we do not network, we will not end up making it the woman's world. It's a man's world today. We need to understand, because we have allowed it to. We are few and we just compete with each other. It is important that we hold each other's hands and create a network where we can support each other. Because if I win, you win. If you win, I win. And that is something that all women need to understand today.
Thank you so much for that, Shweta. I think we had a brilliant interaction. Thank you for your time. I'm sure every person who's watching this will be very, very happy and will have loads of takeaways. Thank you for that.